Landri Moore, and today I'm going to be talking about the excessive government regulation that small businesses face. So first of all, what is a small business? According to the Small Business Administration, a small business is one that is independently owned and operated, exerts little influence in its industry, and with a few exceptions has fewer than 500 employees. So before I get into the excessive regulations, I'm going to talk about a couple of the disadvantages that small businesses already have. These include insufficient funds, unlimited liability, and high marketing costs. So when small businesses start off, they have insufficient funds because a lot of it's coming out of the owner's pocket, or they have to take out loans. They have unlimited liability not only with their employees, but with the business that they're starting because they're the ones that are taking out the risk. And then they have high marketing costs because they're not a well-known business. They have to spend a lot of money on marketing in order to get their name out there in order to be successful. So why do we have government regulations? The general answer is for the good of society. They want to eliminate the harm of the ability of private sectors to do harm to other organizations, individuals, or other groups. According to Lloyd Dixon from the Rand Corporation, in general, government regulation of private businesses tends to serve two overriding public objectives. One is to promote market competition and control market power of large firms over customers and small firms, and two is to mitigate any adverse effects of business activity on individuals, other organizations, and the environment. So the big question is, how do these regulations become so excessive? According to Scott Shane, who did a study at the Case Western Reserve University, between 2008 and 2013, regulation went from being small businesses' fourth most biggest problem after sales, taxes, and the cost availability of insurance to its biggest difficulty. The Federal Register also increased by the thousands. This is a publication of the U.S. federal government that issues proposed and final administrative regulations of federal agencies. So when the Federal Register first came out, it had about 2,600 pages, but today it exceeds over 75,000. Also, while Obama has been in office, he has instituted 4 times the number of major regulations, and they cost 5 times as much than when George Bush was in. And according to Shane, the professor from CWRU, since regulatory compliance has a high fixed cost, small businesses face a large per-employee cost of adhering to government regulations than big companies. These regulatory costs are 36% higher than those of large companies. So this also results in economic setbacks from these disadvantages and also the excessive regulations put forth on these small businesses. It reduces new business creation. According to Mark Mandala of United Capital, business deaths have begun to consistently and significantly outpace the birth rate for new businesses, even as we have exited the recession and entered into the expansion period. It also lowers small company employment and investment, makes domestic companies less competitive internationally, and motivates businesses to transfer operations to less heavily regulated venues overseas. These small companies are finding these regulations to be so costly that they're outsourcing these jobs overseas where they find things to be less expensive, and this is resulting in us being less competitive internationally. So this chart compares the employer births versus the deaths, and it's kind of hard to see, but between 2008 and 2011, which is also when these small businesses stated that the government regulations became their biggest difficulty, the deaths are actually exceeding the births in these businesses. This graph shows the difference in regulations in the different presidents that were in office. So as I said before, Obama has instituted 4 times the major regulations, and he's the green, which is the top one. President Clinton is the blue, and then Bush was the red. So why does this matter, why small businesses are getting hit with these regulations? First of all, small businesses are the backbone of the economy. All large businesses start small. They create jobs and they spark innovation. They provide opportunities for financial success to men, women, minorities, and families. And they're an entrepreneurial force, and they create new technology and patents every day. So they already have disadvantages going into small businesses because it's hard to start up, and then these regulations are really piling on top of them, causing more deaths than births in the businesses and hurting our economy. So these are my references, and do you have any questions?
Defining small business, a real quick definition. Would you kind of look more at employees, or would you look at dollar sales, or how do they look at small business?
It said it was defined as anyone that has fewer than 500 employees, but with a few exceptions. So I know when somebody spoke last week, it said like, I think it's if you're like a manufacturing company, you can have a little more than 500, but it's based on that, just the size of employee.
Okay. And you know, the slide with the regulations, Obama, their administration has put more regulation on small business. Is that what they've done?
Yeah, he's instituted 4 times the number of regulations, and they've costed 5 times as much. And it said like a major regulation is one that will cost like a certain amount of $1 million for small businesses.
And what's been the reaction of business to Obama's new regulations?
It resulted in more deaths than births. So at the same time that these regulations were put forth, and when small businesses stated that the regulations became their biggest problem, the death rates exceeded the birth rates.
Oh.
So less
Okay.
businesses
Yeah,
were
good.
starting.
Oh, good, excellent. Any questions for Landri on this? Anybody? Anything? Good. Okay, anyone else ready to go? I mean, anyone? Anything? Anyone behind me ready to go? You ready to go? Okay, we got one more, you know.